Welcome to offpat.com, episode number 9. We've been on the road for 90 days and have done 12,500 kilometers. That is about 1,000 kilometers per week since we've left Uruguay, Montevideo. This overview shows how we've gone through Paraguay, then Bolivia and into Peru, visited Machu Picchu and then via Huancayo up to Huaraz. From here, from our last stay at Camping Guadalupe, we leave Caraz in the direction northwest to finally go to Tumbes and reach the border to Ecuador. On our western side, we've left the Cordillera Negra behind us and are traveling along the Cordillera Occidental. The first exciting piece of road was going through the Canyon del Pato. This stretch of road originally was a single line railway track and was cut through the mountains within about 35 tunnels hewn out of the rock. A single line railway line was constructed with 35 tunnels through these mountains, and more recently it was converted into a single line road. Being a single lane, no vehicles can pass inside the tunnels. Any second, around any corner in these tunnels, traffic from the front could appear. When this happens, there's only one way. Either party has to reverse until the road is clear. There are a few turn-offs where this is possible, so your skills, driving skills, are tested thoroughly. To communicate with oncoming traffic, all happens by blowing the Butow.
Dann muss man hier ausscheren. Ach, das habe ich doch gedacht schon.
We were lucky that we didn't have any truck or bus coming towards us in the very long sections of the tunnel. Viele kleine Tunnel hintereinander. Wow! Der Tunnel hinter Tunnel. Mit Tennisplatz und Schwimmbad. Due to the many minerals in these mountains, the coloring of the rock faces is quite spectacular. Then we passed through Hualanca, which is a power generation town where a turbine station was built into the rock faces. Jaime at Camping Guadalupe in Caraz had mentioned to us that there is a shortcut, so we do not have to drive down to Chimbote, but that we can save about 70 kilometers by taking a toll road of the Proyecto Chavimoche, which seems to be a mining area. This stretch of road really goes through a desertous area, and the only greenery is immediately adjacent to the Rio Santa. Once we had taken the toll road at Estación, we really were on a good road, reaching the Panamericana after about 30 or 40 kilometers. In this area, wherever there's water, big new plantations are developed. Finally, we passed Trujillo and turned off to go to Huanchaco Gardens RV campsite in Huanchaco, just north of Trujillo. We enjoyed this campsite. It was safe and clean, and Huanchaco offered restaurants and good food, and we observed the little reed boats where the fishermen still in a traditional way go out to fish and come back with plenty of pelicans around, hoping to also get a morsel. Early in the morning we drove down to the beach side where the pier is and enjoyed the vibe and the scenery before we continued north. We could have easily stayed longer in Huanchaco, but we had to hurry up as Bernd and Marion Fraundorfer were waiting for us in Zorritos to go into Colombia, and we had lost 5 days due to vehicle problems with the brakes. We continued passing Pacasmayo, filled up in Chiclayo, and then traversed the Desierto de Sechura, aiming to sleep in Bayova, a coastal town and harbor and fishing harbor where we hoped that we would get fresh fish at a reasonable price. Bayova itself isn't worth visiting. It turned out to be a minerals export terminal which we couldn't access. Although we wanted to sleep over in Bayova, we went to the local fishing harbor, quite picturesque. The locals were, however, not very friendly and tried to sell us fish at about 4 times the going price. We left with an uncomfortable feeling and proceeded further on to find a camping space along the coast, and this we found closer to Parachic. Just before Parachic, we turned off to Estuario De Verilia, a protected area for birds and sea turtles, along an estuary opposite of Parachic. Here we saw a coyote and observed many birds, crabs, and had a splendid evening with a stunning sunset. We felt quite safe to camp here as there were no people and it didn't look like the area was frequented too often. We could observe Parachic on the other side, which seemed to be a busy fishing town. Next morning we proceeded to Parachic, had a good look at the beautiful fishing harbor, and then proceeded via Sechura to Piura, where we could do some further shopping at the Plaza Vea Supermercado, then drove past Mancora and ultimately arrived at Swiss Vassi Camping. Finally, we had caught up with Bernd and Marion Frauendorfer, who had waited for us. Here we stayed another 2 days, recovering from the trip, cleaning up, washing the linen, and had plenty of pisco sours and braais or asados. Melba makes the best pisco sour, we were told, and this is quite true. At Swiss Vassi we also met Colossus, a genuine Peruvian Viringo dog, which are without a coat and feel like a leather couch. The water was a balmy 24 degrees and we kept ourselves busy on the beach, walking, swimming, relaxing. We booked a meal with Melba and she dished up lobster and pisco sour. Finally, the time had come to say goodbye to Swiss Vassi. and proceed in the direction of Tumbes in order to cross into Ecuador. Crossing into Ecuador was without any problems, and the southern part of Ecuador was relatively boring because it consisted mainly of banana plantations. However, as we made our way further north, the landscape became very interesting, quite lush compared to Peru. We encountered a fair amount of construction on this section of road. Other sections were heavily potholed and not so easy to drive. From the border at Huanquilas, we went through Arenilla, Santa Rosa, Pasaje, Giron, and finally entered Cuenca.
Da hat er sein Fenster runtergedreht und sich nochmal richtig raus. Ich meine, das ist jetzt der Wein.
On the outskirts of Cuenca, we stayed at Cabañas Yanuncay, where we could camp in the yard and then explore Cuenca from here. While we explored Cuenca, we learned that the famous Panama hat actually comes from here and are manufactured in artisanal shops right through the city. We explored the markets, the beautiful flower market, and some of the cathedrals. During our shopping at Super Maxi, we soon realized Ecuador is quite expensive. The official currency is US dollar. Although we would have liked to have a bottle of wine with supper, we didn't, as a typical bottle in the supermarket was about $20 US. We headed for the Lagunas Atillo, and the day remained rainy. A quick stop at Guamote to fill up, and then into the mountains to get to the lagunas at about 3,400 meters. The mountain scenery was spectacular, and we were trying to reach the Sungai National Park. However, as we reached the park, it was quite clear there wasn't much to be seen. It was rainy and foggy, and we had to find a place for the night. We turned around and finally ended up at a road going down where there were some logging activities happening. We took a road off the main road and headed down towards a small river and found a very suitable camping site where we put up our tent, and it was good to be sheltered from the rain and the cold. However, at about 8 o'clock that night, 2 trucks started parking next to us, and the truckers from the logging activity stayed with us at the same site. Next morning the weather had partially cleared and we visited the lagunas, then turned around and headed for Riobamba. In Riobamba, we negotiated with the owner of the Hotel El Troche, meaning the Peacock, that we could stay inside the yard and use a room with bathroom. This allowed us to explore Riobamba, especially the market where excellent pork can be eaten, a large hall where many women have prepared crispy pork, very delicious.
Samstagmorgen, 9 Uhr fast.
Bernd and Marion had been to Ecuador on a previous trip and for about 4 weeks had only cloud and never seen a volcano along this route. We were lucky the next day. It looked like it's going to be an open and sunny day and we headed for the iconic Shimborazzo Volcano. The Chimborazzo Volcano lies in the Chimborazo Forest Reserve. And as we approached, we could really see that we were lucky with a splendid day ahead of us. Along the route, we could see the many layers of ashes over the millennia. As we approached, we indeed realized that this mountain is high. We could drive up to 4,800 meters, where there was also a little restaurant where we had coffee and cake. In the park we spotted some guanacos, as well as the Andes wolf, the Lobo de Parano. To our surprise, there was no entrance fee to visit the park. Quite a few crosses on the side remind us of climbers who had lost their life trying to reach the peak. Chimborazzo's claim to fame is that it is in fact the highest mountain, higher than Everest, if measured from the center of the earth, simply because it's close to the equator. From Riobamba we took a road eastwards via Penipe in the direction of the active volcano Tungurahua, which we were quite keen to see. This volcano erupted in the year 2000 with a height of 5,023 meters. Along the road we passed stalls which were selling the Ecuadorian delicacy, namely grilled cuy, which are guinea pigs. Nobody of us could muster enough courage to eat any of those, although they are quite delicious.
Da ist ja gehörig was gerutscht. Bist du da in Ordnung in diesem Gang?
Ja, richtig.
Naja, man hat das Glück, dass das alles Sand ist hier. Sind keine Steine. Ärgerst du dich?
This remote road took us high up into the Andes again, past many small farms where trucks were picking up fresh milk and taking it down to Riobamba.
Also hält er gleich die Hand auf.
Ich weiß nicht, was der macht.
Due to the elevation, the vehicles took a little bit of strain, which can be seen here on Bern's Land Cruiser.
Und auf was sind gerade?
Buenos dias.
Hola. Yes.
The locals seemed very friendly and we enjoyed the trip up the mountain, especially because of its fantastic flora.
Ecuador.
The volcano itself was covered in clouds, although we could see the emission of the smoke on the top.
Nee, ich möchte auch.
Song from your heart to the living God.
Da oben stehen die Kühe. Aber da hat man ja Glück, wenn es Land ist. Kinder stehen.
Once back in Riobamba, we took the Pan Am further north via Ambato and then stopped in San Miguel de Salcedo, a town known for its artisanal ice cream. It was a stop worth making, having our first coconut and coffee ice cream.
Ach, der war sicher.
At La Tacunga we turned off in a westerly direction to get to the crater lake Lago Quilotoa. Getting to the Lago Quilotoa is a very scenic drive. We had the advantage of the sun slowly setting, but it was getting increasingly cold and very windy. When we reached the lake, we just had enough time to pitch our tent strap it down completely, anchor it on Bernd and Marion's Land Cruiser as the wind became very fierce. Soon afterwards we witnessed how the wind took roofs off the little rondables which were next to us. We huddled in our side tent and waited for the morning after a hearty meal and hoped that we could walk up to the crater lake and see the spectacular views. We were lucky as the weather had cleared and we had a spectacular view of Lago Quilotoa with its emerald green water. This volcano hasn't erupted for a long time. Next day on our way back we had large fields of lupines and had a sample of the very rural area before we got to a canyon, the Canyon del Rio Toachi, with its sheer walls, white and grey, quite scenic. Compared to Peru, even the rural areas are exceptionally clean here, and we witnessed how garbage trucks go into these areas to collect all the rubbish from the small holdings and farms. We took a back road towards the town of Lasso, which is known because it has the hacienda where Alexander von Humboldt resided for a while.
Arriving at HDA La Chinaga on the left.
After viewing the rooms where Humboldt had resided, we decided to stay for a good cup of coffee and let the whole atmosphere of this historical place sink in. Close to Park Nacional de Cotopaxi, we turned off to then stay at Cuello de Luna, a camping site with a good view of this volcano which we wanted to visit next.